Great skills again by him. Oh, marvellous goal by Logan.
Welcome to the Rangers journey.
Tell me Rangers are playing well without showing me any evidence that Rangers are playing well. And that is what we've seen in this last week. The seethe from the comeback win against Falkirk has been quite apparent in the media and in the newspapers this week. Joined to talk about this and all the Rangers-related news from the last week is Cammy and Billy. Cammy, how you do? First of all, mate, you all right?
Yeah, good. Looking forward to a stressless weekend. No Rangers. So, yeah, all good, mate.
Billy, it looks like you come fresh for a haircut there.
I always look like I come fresh from a haircut. That goes back 20 odd years. But thanks for reminding me, Billy. Cheers.
I give myself a number 2, but it's getting closer and closer to being like yourself.
There's less and less to work on.
Well, yeah, I can vouch for that. Billy, yeah, I mentioned that it's a great comeback win. Obviously, that's the kind of starting point for the new show today. From being 2 goals down, and I think quite deservedly, we weren't playing very well, and the Falkirk took the chances that they took. But the biggest kind of news wasn't even the result. It's they're just the absolute pandering to make anything anti-Rangers in the news this week. Again, you're not in the country, but how have you found it?
Oh, I'm all across the media over here. I've tried caring about the Swedish news and the Swedish football, but I just can't. But when it comes to Rangers, it's a different matter, and it's been amazing to see people scrabbling about for non-stories. Like, that ball might have been out. Well, it might have been out, but it wasn't. And even if it had been out, there was no camera angle to prove it. And if it had been the other way around, it would have been like a 10 seconds mention on BBC Scotland and done. So that was funny. I mean, the whole sea's been a thing to kind of savour. I think what's been kind of interesting though is for me, it was the feeling. It's one of those moments where it feels like that this team is growing and they're actually giving you reasons to believe, because it did feel like that game under Clement at Ross County, where we just still one of the most abysmal Rangers performances, especially at that end of the season, I've ever seen, where we just fell apart. And at 2-0 down and Falkirk playing the conditions and it looking more likely to go 3-0 than 2-1, I think a lot of us were getting that feeling in our stomach of is this where the pressure's made this team crack, and is this going to be Ross County Mark II? The manner of the comeback though has got us buzzing a wee bit. I still think this team has got, we all know it's got weaknesses, and I still think they can be a bit up and down. One thing's for sure, when you're looking for reasons to be optimistic, this Rangers team has got gears that Hearts and Celtic don't.
Fair enough, mate. No, that's not something to disagree with. I was just trying to look up the name of the Falkirk director's name, because I was going to come to you, Cammy. You are one of the people he had a problem.
That will be Jamie Swinney, the CEO of Falkirk.
He likes to wear different teams' football shirts. I see him in a few different ones during the week. Not ours though, funnily enough. But complaining about fans buying tickets to a game. The basic facts of this, Cammy, is Falkirk sold these tickets to the people they sold them to, or Falkirk season ticket holders sold their tickets. You were at the game. I'll not mention what section you were sitting in, but you. How do you feel about the remarks he made after the game? Really, it was more kind of covering his backside, I think, on the Monday.
100%. Just playing to the gallery, playing to the Falkirk fans who have moaned about it. They see it as predictable. David Edgar on Heart and Hand summed it up perfectly over recent days. You just know that people are starting to cotton on to the chance that Rangers have got a real chance of, against all odds, winning the league title this year. If Rangers had lost 3-1 on Sunday, there would have been no noise at all, nothing, no naughty songs, no fans in the wrong end, all that sort of stuff. From the Falkirk point of view, it was inevitable what was happening. From where I was sitting within the stadium, you could see a section of about 30 or 40 Rangers fans right next to the segregation barrier. Stevie Wonder could have seen them. It was so blatantly obvious that they were not they were Rangers fans, and it's one of these situations. I was fortunate enough to be in the stadium, but I was also respectful of where I was sitting within the stadium, and I didn't. I conducted myself, and I think Falkirk fans will accept that. I don't think they're going to bump their gums, but Falkirk fans can do very similar to Seats Up that Rangers have. They can release the tickets back to the club. So I think that's probably what's happening. I'm assuming you must have a registration on the Falkirk database, a purchase history, something along those lines, which enables fans to do that. I saw a lot of Rangers fans that I know from games within the hospitality section. Same situation. Falkirk are quite happy to take the £200 per head that the Rangers fans have paid. If they don't have the mechanisms in place, whether it's buying a normal ticket or buying a hospitality ticket, that's no Rangers fans' problem. As David Edgar says, if Rangers were playing the last game of the season on the moon and we didn't have any tickets, there would be Rangers fans find their way to be there. That's always been the case, and it's not going to change. You're hearing it ahead of Tynecastle. We've obviously only got 600 tickets for Tynecastle, which is what it is. Hearts can sell out their tickets. That's entirely up to them. But I think there's similar issues may happen on that day, because I think hospitality, I was talking to a Hearts fan during the week, and their hospitality, you only need 7 points to be able to buy hospitality. Now, a Rangers fan with a wee bit of ingenuity has planned ahead and has made sure that he's got 7 points on his purchase history, and then is able to maybe buy a table for £250 a head, and there's 10 Rangers fans into the stadium. So clubs have to look after themselves. You know, if you can't take the money and then have this full outrage after the event. It's very predictable, but to get back to it, if Rangers hadn't came back, as Billy was talking about, if we drew 2-2 or we had lost 3-2 or whatever, the noise wouldn't be there. It's the fact that Rangers have came back so comprehensively in the second half. Jamie Swinney being pictured with a Celtic top on, I really don't care. The guys, from what I gather, he's been involved with local football. He was at Stennismuir, where my boy is, and he's now at Falkirk and is doing a good job from that point of view. You know, the fact that he's, I don't think the fact that he's been pictured with a Celtic strip makes any real difference to his comments. He's ultimately just playing to the gallery of the Falkirk fans that are moaning about the failings of their own football club in the selling of tickets, whether that's normal tickets or hospitality. But it's this. Let's hope the seethe continues between now and the middle of May.
Yeah, but I don't have to spend too much longer on it. I'll just make a couple of comments on my own thoughts. I mean, I live near McDermott Park. They don't let me buy tickets to the Rangers or even Celtic game if I want to go and watch, see how Celtic were doing, whatever. But there's things in place that clubs can do. But it is human nature for fans when their team are doing well in a title race with only a few games to go to want to get into the matches, Bill, isn't it?
It absolutely is, and to go back to Cammy's point, there have been occasions where I've struggled to get into the Rangers end at an away game. So I was unfortunate enough to be in the home end at Pittodrie when Stephen Glasgow started to cost us 10 in a row. Over in Malmo, I've managed to get tickets and been in the away end. You behave yourself because ultimately you want to be respectful, but also you are in the home end. So if you cheer a goal and you get punched, that's on you. You know, like ultimately it's sort of self-policing. You know, it's not nice behaviour, but ultimately you're kind of asking for it. What I would say about Mr. Swinney, no relation, I'm sure, is it's kind of funny seeing him with that picture in his Celtic tap outside Hooters. Did make me think immediately that makes complete sense. What an utter Tim of a man. I would slightly go. Well, what Cammy was here up to a point, saying that he's playing to the gallery of Falkirk fans. He is, but let's be honest, he's also playing to his Celtic mates, and he's hoping that if he's down the line, he's probably hoping for a job at Celtic. And it's kind of like you see this, I think, with with Tim-friendly football people around the world, they do play to the Celtic gallery. I think back to Steve Clarke when he was in almost tears and his family were all doing pressers because like 50 Rangers fans had sung a not nice song about him. Yet the week before, when 6,000 Celtic fans were singing the same song, inverted and directed at Chris Boyd, nobody wanted to know, and his ears weren't working. So I always find it quite interesting to see Celtic people saying things that will please their mates and maybe get them a job down the line, or maybe I'm just a cynic.
Fair enough, mate. Yeah, we'll move on from the subject. It does kind of get on my goat a wee bit that it seems to only ever be one team that is targeted. Now, I'm not condoning the singing of whatever songs, but it's not something that offends me if Celtic fans or other fans sing things about Rangers supporters that's not particularly nice. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. I don't know why people get connected in the Twitter.
See, the thing is, Billy, it just sums up the pantomime that is Scottish football and the full outrage. It's I'm at an age now where I almost just laugh at it. It's this eternal need to be offended about anything. I think it's just a society it's modern society now. It's not just confined to football. I just want to go watch my team. I've sat in home ends at Aberdeen, Dundee United. I go back. So I was passing that baton on to my son on Sunday, and he behaved he behaved impeccably, despite his foot tapping during a lot of the Rangers songs, right enough. But listen, it is what it is. Rangers won the game, and let's go on and talk about the football.
Yeah, I got to say the game was certainly for the 45 minutes after we scored the first goal was brilliant. I think that's like 6 goals in 40 something minutes. It's really kind of, I don't think I've ever seen it myself, not from memory anyway. But moving on, Billy, the team go away on a summer, not a summer, but a warm weather training camp. Notoriously, though, that's not really proved very good for us. When we went away kind of mid-season, we've come back and not really hit the ground running. What do you expect from this little break they're taking?
I mean, there are two things to say there. One is I think that there's a lot of sort of hindsight bias with stuff like this. I think if we go away in a training camp and we win the league, then it's worked, and if we don't, we kind of and then obviously it was a bad choice. And I think that's a false binary in many ways. You think, but I think I mentioned this before, but like we had the 2 training camps where we fell away prior to 55, and people were keen to say, oh, it was a bad move. Scott Arfield would say that actually Rangers were playing fine when they came back and the training camp was a good thing. Celtic just went on a very consistent run and didn't drop points, and we did, and the pressure eventually told. So when I look at this training camp, it's like everything, because of the stage of the season and the tension in the title race, we are analysing things to a granular detail, even for Scottish football and Rangers fans. What I try to do to get a wee bit of distance about this is imagine flipping it around and saying, if we were playing in the Cup semi-final, how would I feel about Hearts and Celtic going away for a training camp? And actually I'd be going, damn it, we could be doing with that. We could be doing with a week away from the Goldfish Bowl. We could be doing with a week under the sun, just working on partnerships, like Giga and Fernandez getting 5 days playing together, working on the set pieces, working on the tactical tweaks Danny Rule doesn't get to do as much of mid-season. So on balance, I think that if we weren't going in a training camp just now with 2 weeks off, that would be kind of negligent. I think it's down to how the players react, and that's my big question mark about a lot of this season. Is now you get into the post-split. I've made the analogy before because I've got a Canadian friend and he talks a lot. He's a Toronto Leafs fan for his sins because they haven't won an awful lot in decades. And he talks about the difference between regular season and the playoffs, and like players who look great for most of the season, when it gets to the playoffs and things go up a couple of gears, they don't have those extra levels. What we're going to find out in the last 5 games is if this Rangers team have got that little bit extra. And what it's actually going to take is we're lacking a wee bit of a leadership group. I think we've got Tavernier and Butland, but they are what they are, and we haven't won an awful lot with them. I think what we're going to find is with the likes of Fernandez, do we have players who can grow into leaders in the course of the next 5 games? Because there's evidence based on the 6-3 and other games, that actually we have got that capacity. I think for the training camp, it is the right thing to do. But it's Scottish football. If we come back and lose, one of the posters was saying there, if we come back and lose the next game, it'll have been a terrible idea. Personally, I think it's the right thing to do. If you get 2 weeks off, a wee bit of hard work, a wee bit of bonding. I think you cannot underestimate in the modern game that there isn't as much in that. They don't go, on benders together and kind of on the tear, partly because of sports conditioning and partly because mobile phones are everywhere and you're asking for trouble. So I think that the time together, as much as anything, will be a good thing. How it actually plays out thereafter, we'll have to wait and see.
Cammy, I did hear your opinion on this breakaway on another podcast this week, but for the Rangers Journal listeners, do you think it's a good idea that we've done this? Like, Billy's definitely on the side of that it was. And you're muted, mate, sorry.
I think it's been a talk about being an amateur. I think this was my first one. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think Hearts are away as well, I believe. I think they were planning to go to Dubai, but obviously that's not happened. But it allows Tor Romans, it allows Nadiri, it allows Mikey Moore carrying an injury. Bit of sunshine on your back, away from the noise, all the over-analysis of everything. I think the comment where he said, if we don't beat Motherwell, it's because of not playing well enough. That's spot on. Whether you're training at Auchenhowie or whether you're training in Marbella makes no difference at all. I think that what makes no difference on the actual performance, excuse me, a week on Sunday. I think it's it's the right thing to do. Change your scenery. I think there's a few young players pictured as well. Opportunity for team bonding, however that looks. It can be everybody going out for a meal. Doesn't have to be everybody tearing it up in Marbella. It's just about getting away and developing that bond across the next 4 weeks of the season. I mean, I think there is probably quite a strong bond there, but I just think it's a no-brainer to allow Mikey Moore and guys. I think Gassama picked up an injury on Sunday as well, so I think players that are carrying knocks, a wee bit of sunshine on your back, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. We've got PTSD because of what happened with Dubai in the past, but if Rangers don't go on and win this league, it'll be because we've not done the business on the pitch. It'll be nothing at all to do with training camps.
Cammy, you do speak to an awful lot of people from different teams and supporters. What the other two Hearts and Celtic fans thinking about either the option to, not an option, but playing a game or going away? That if it was me, I think I maybe would side towards having some rest time at this time of the season. But I've seen some comments that the keeping the game, keeping the winning streak going is maybe more important. But what's the kind of the signs you're sort of hearing out there?
I think certainly from the Hearts perspective, I think they were very similar to our point of view. They've had a lot of players that have been carrying injuries and just coming back into fitness, your Shanklins and Devlins and guys like that. So I think they would quite like to be following up with a game, but they're caught between the balance of building that momentum. I think certainly from the Celtic, it takes the sort of feel good, the momentum for them going into the. I would like to be, obviously you want to be playing in the Scottish Cup semi-final. There's no any doubt at all about that. But that was because we didn't do the business on the day. But this opportunity has came about. I think we're all. We could see the benefits of the game, but we could also see the benefits. So I think from the Celtic point of view, they're happy to try and they're clutching for anything to try to build something going into this last period of the season. The Hearts point of view, I think they're very similar to me as a Rangers fan. Would like to be in the semi-final to keep the momentum going, but also try to play the long game, get your players into a better condition for the last 5 matches. I don't talk to that many Hearts and Celtic fans. It's
We're just alluding to your other career.
Just the other podcast I've obviously been doing over the last few weeks, talking to Hearts and Celtic fans, and that's going to heat up over the next few weeks as the results and the twists and turns develop. But I think we're all just taking it game by game, and I'm glad of this break to allow the fans to reset and allow the manager and the players to reset.
Actually, when you said on the other pod you were 2-0 down, you were thinking more about that podcast coming up, because what you're going to say, how you're going to spin this, you're going to come out and defend it. But I was actually sitting thinking the exact same thing watching the game, Cammy. Like, what's Cammy going to say on Wednesday?
Listen, and that's just part of it's very much, there's a lot of variables, a lot of things can happen across the next 3 or 4 weeks. And it is very cliche. Danny Rule has spoke about it's all about the next one. And that's all we can do. Take this break, gain the benefits from this break. I think we play second next weekend. I think Celtic play Saturday, yep. We play, and then I think Hearts are off the back of our game. So it's just about what we do. Hopefully we've got a full squad and everybody's available for selection, and Danny Rule has got decisions. I was on the pod on Monday night when I spoke about your fringe players and your Asgards and your Majovskis and your Antmans and guys like that. Diomande coming back into the mix, Connor Barron. These guys are going to have a huge impact between now and the end of the season. It's not just going to be about 1 to 11. The guys that are in reserve and fighting for a bench spot are going to have a huge say. But it's funny how you're in the stadium on Sunday and you're thinking, my God, what a way. Ross County, Billy said earlier, Ross County was the game that was in my head, because I thought, this just can't. Falkirk was the away game, and I said this before, Falkirk is the away game out of the 3 that was actually concerning me more. I just thought it was a bigger banana skin. I just think that the Hearts and Celtic games should take care of themselves. But we showed a bit of balls to get back into it. And it's, I think early signs are positive, but there's many a twist and turn for all 3 sides, I think, across the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season.
Billy, not a lot of footage or anything coming out from the training camp. Normally we get specials on Rangers TV. I've not seen anything myself, other than I think it was Giga's agent had put a video of just a bit of a training match with nothing really in it, to be honest. But I was expecting to get a couple of interviews. There's some bits and bobs coming out. It looks like they're having a decent time, but there was a comment back up there saying that Nadiri, not Moore, I'll try to find it again. Romans and Nadiri been seen. They're going to be vitally important if they can come back a bit earlier, right away, to be honest with you, next week to even play a part. That would be great, wouldn't it?
It would, and Balvenie boys knocking it out the park today. Some really great comments, and Balvenie quite a nice tipple. Other single malts are available, obviously. I think it's interesting. We're not seeing that much coming out. It's in the social media and like always on age where you have to be churning out content. I was looking, as professional inverted commas podcasters as we are, I was up this morning looking for the Danny Rule interview or something, to make sure that I wasn't missing latest developments. And there's not an awful lot going on, which to me suggests that this is serious business for them. And what I mean by that is they're trying to give the players a proper break. They're putting them in that bubble where they can bond and switch off and properly get away from the goldfish bowl for a bit. Also, not showing training drills or who's fit or who's not fit is probably not the worst idea, because it sounds like, Romans sounds like we should have him back for Motherwell or at worst Hearts. The Naderi, I don't know, it sounded more serious initially, so I'm not giving up on him being back before the end of the season, but there is that question of if it's a serious injury. even if he is available a game or two before the end of the season, is he up to speed? Is he actually going to be the player that we were seeing starting to grow into the jersey and, like rolling players and, holding the ball up and setting up chances? You have to excuse me if you can hear drilling in the background. One of the neighbours is getting some work done. It is interesting that there hasn't been much coming out of the training camp, and you're hoping that that's more about giving the players a break rather than, worrying about hiding potential injuries or where players are at. Like obviously we've heard Mikey Moore's maybe been managed a wee bit, and that one's a concern for me because Mikey Moore is fairly vital to driving the team forward, but he's not our player. And if the injury becomes too much of a concern at any point, Spurs can just go, actually, he's got the benefit of the loan. We don't want you to use him. So stuff like that keeps me up at night. But hopefully there's nothing sinister behind the lack of media coming out, and it's more about just giving the players that proper 5-day, 6-day bubble, because they're going to be back at the weekend and they're going to be right back into it. Even though it's training, they'll be in and around the city. They'll be getting it from media. I think it's funny. Like the more you haven't thought about it, the more I've talked about it. I'm thinking, as much as it's a break for footballing purposes, it probably is that week of just giving the players a mental freshness away from the pressure. As fans, it's a nightmare because we want to know what's happening all the time. But I can live with it for 5 days.
Cammy, Joshua Barrett, Rangers Review, friend of ours. Derek's been on the pod, I think, at least once, but he's a very, very nice guy. Thanks to him for coming on that time with me anyway. But they had an interview with Raskin, sorry, his name just came out my head, with Raskin. But there was two points, I think, that an interview was kind of spread over 2 days. Day one really focusing on his relationship with Russell Martin. And I've got to say, some of the treatment of one of our kind of biggest assets, I would say, was very strange from Russell Martin. What did you make of the interview?
It was good to actually hear Nico's side of the story. I think you could put 2 and 2 together at the start of the season, that there was a clear personality clash with regard to the two of them. Fortunately, Nico, as much as Russell Martin was trying his best to obviously force him out the door, he's probably thought, I'm going to be here longer than you. I think was the best way to look at it. But yeah, I think it just tells us what was going on with Russell Martin. I don't think Nico Raskin will be the only one that has had a difficult relationship with him. I know there's been others, but it hasn't made the public domain. But it's just somebody that's been given a job that's way above their capabilities. Despite them thinking that they are the Real Madrid or Barcelona manager, and in their own head, they're good and they're this, that, and the next thing. So. It was interesting just to hear Nico. It's taken a while for him to put, and it's probably the first time he's actually spoken in depth about a lot of things, and it was interesting to see. Having seen Nico post match on Sunday, he was buzzing after his second half performance. That's the Nico Raskin that we want to see far more of. We've not seen that version of Nico across this season enough. So. If that version appears across the next 5 games, I think Kevin Thompson said that there's every chance Rangers win the league. But Russell Martin, we're on the 17th of April. I still find it remarkable, given the complete shambles that we were across July to October under Russell Martin, that we are in a title race. So be grateful for the fact that Danny Rowles came in and managed to do what he's done. Russell Martin's just, unfortunately, he's going to be part of our history, and we just have to put it down to experience and don't make mistakes like that again.
Billy, there's a comment here about managing big attitudes. When you've got a player like Nico Raskin, I think it was Cammy said in one of our earlier pods this week that he's always nipping at the referee. He's always giving the referee a hard time. So you're going to see that, from him in training probably as well. He's going to be nipped back at you. But part of Russell Martin's job was to manage that. And his idea of managing is that I'll just get rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, every club needs to have a worst manager ever in your history. I kind of wish our worst manager ever wasn't as bad as Russell Martin. But I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I find the handling of the Nicola Raskin situation very emblematic of his time at Rangers. You listen to the likes of Barry Ferguson talking about Raskin and saying he is someone who asks questions. He's not got an attitude. He's just like, he's come through the Belgian system, and it's like, you want me to do that? Why? Why don't you want me to do something else? I think that's all right. I think if you've got a player, too many players are drones nowadays and they just fit into a system. I think you've got a player who will do what he's told but needs to understand why, and will have maybe suggestions for other ways to do things. As long as the manager's the final say, I don't have a problem with that. And I think the fact, when you listen to the interview, the way Raskin describes it is not good man management. You know, if Martin effectively like indicating that he better find another club, and Raskin going, yeah, I don't think so. And then afterwards, Martin just acting like everything was fine. That's how does a player respect that? Because effectively his manager sort of bottled the situation. Walter Smith goes to tell a player to find a new club. That player is trying to find a new club the next day, if not that afternoon. And had that player not found a club through whatever circumstances, you know, Walter Smith's going to go up to him, like, you know, like talk to him and say, right, okay, you haven't got a club, you're here. Let's see what we can do together in the time that's coming up. But it would be an open, clear conversation. And I think it's an indicator of how inexperienced or limited Russell Martin is as a manager, that when he came up against someone with a bit of a personality, his attitude was really to isolate and other them to a certain extent. And I wonder if that also maybe speaks to why we were in some of the mess we were in the season. He almost wants players who are chess pieces he can literally move about the pitch, rather than what I would like from a Rangers team. I would like a team that, okay, they go out with the manager's plan, but they actually can think for themselves. They can adapt in game. And I just think back to that point earlier in the season, and God, we were like at 6, 8, 10 games in, whatever it was, and it's kickoff, and Russell Martin screaming at someone because they're not standing in the right position at kickoff. And part of me's thinking, I know players can sometimes not take messages on board, but if they don't know where they're standing at kickoff, that's on the manager. So, yeah, I mean, Nicola Raskin, I think, he can be prickly. I don't mind that. To touch on one other point, he does nip at referees. I think sometimes he gets drawn into stuff when he doesn't need to. I'd like to see him in a bit more control in that. I'd like to see him nipping when it's beneficial, getting into things with the opposition when it's beneficial. I think sometimes he can be sort of like drawn into stuff by the opposition and kind of taking off his game a wee bit. So I'd like to see him develop that. But yes, he's learning. He's playing with the Belgian team, so he's going to get better with that national squad, playing with those players. But in general, if anything kind of sums up Russell Martin as a manager, I think it's what we've heard about the way he dealt with that, which was very much tried to other him when he had the power, and then kind of bottled it and acted like everything was fine afterwards. And like, just to go back to what Cammy says, getting him out when we did, it showed the 49ers don't mess about when they see someone's not up to it, and we're very lucky to have got Danny Rule in when we did.
I don't know, Billy. I think he could have went a couple of weeks before that, in my opinion. But no, they did the right thing in the end. Cammy, feel free to come in, but I was going to ask you about the second part of that interview where he talks about his relationship with Danny Rule and how much of a difference that is.
I mean, it's obvious. You can see there's times where Nico's across at the side of the park, and he's talking to him and he's explaining certain aspects of his role. I think I said this on I think it was Monday night's pod. Danny Rule has shown great experience and people skills and man management of a far more experienced guy. In my opinion, I think. I mean, I'm no Walter Smith handled. I'm not putting him in this. He's long way to go to be in that echelon. But you have to be able to handle different personalities. Any manager, doesn't matter whether you're a football manager or you're a manager in an office. you have to be able to handle different people in different ways, and that is what Billy said about Russell Martin. He wanted everybody. It's my way or the highway, and that's not the approach that gets buy-in at all. But I think it's very clear to see that Danny Rule loves Nico. Nico loves Danny Rule. I would just like to see more of the performances, more of the freedom. Because I think Nico wants more freedom. I think Nico's at his best when he's given a bit more freedom to express himself and get forward and what have you. And I think one of the comments talking about Nico is give him the armband. He's one of these players, I think, that he's a leader within his actions on the pitch, and he's nipping at the referee, and he shows more passion than probably a lot of people would say about Tav, but they're different styles. I think in any successful Rangers team, any successful football team, you need 4 or 5 players that are like that, and Nico has the qualities to be a future Rangers captain. The thing that will stop it from happening is the fact that Nico Raskin will probably move on, I think, after the World Cup this summer. So that I could be wrong. He doesn't really, he sort of hedges his bets, I think, with regard to that. But I think Nico and Danny Rule it's been a positive, good relationships. I think Danny Rule, I've said this on pods as well. See, the other thing that I liked, Billy, he spoke about not going, and I think a lot of Rangers fans, including ourselves, could probably learn from it. Don't get too high and don't get too low. He used the Motherwell game where I think we were 1-0 up and we lost a goal with a couple of minutes to go, and the hysteria off the back of that outside the training ground. You know, we were all raging, we've thrown away 2 points, but he says the balance, and just he keeps everything. You win 5-0 or you draw 1 each. He doesn't have any, and I think that's that creates a stable environment for the players. And I think Nico has said he's had multiple managers, he's had overreactions to results and what have you, and I think that's a huge thing for me. The environment that Danny Rule and the people that he's working with are creating, it must be a good place to go to your work. It must, I think everybody enjoys going in the morning, and they enjoy the training, and they're enjoying everything that's going on. So that's a credit to everything that Danny Rule has done. But I just don't think we'll have Nico long enough for him to be a Rangers captain, unfortunately.
Billy, he mentioned in the interview, I'll try and sum it up, that he's allowed to play with freedom but with limits. So have you seen that the last wee while? I mean, I've got to say, I didn't think he had a good first half the other day there, but the second half that's what we want to see. For me, it's just been a consistency issue with him across various managers. The fact, maybe he mentioned in the article about playing as a number 8 and not really enjoying that. I actually thought he played that role really well. But what do you think of him long term? Cammy's saying we think we'll lose him in the summer. I tend to agree with that, but there's also the money there to give him a bigger contract and make him Rangers captain for a couple of years.
Raskin's an interesting one because there's lots of evidence for him having the potential to be an absolutely cracking player, but he's not consistent. Even when you think about his early days at Rangers, a long period where it just looked like it wasn't going to happen for him, and then he had that little purple patch that let us see that there is a player in here, and I guess that's what will be interesting about Raskin's development. And it's something I think we've got more of an appreciation for, having been down the leagues, is that the difference between a run-of-the-mill, like a journeyman footballer who would absolutely play us off the park if we all had a kick about, and a top-level player isn't always what they can do. It's how often they can do it. So you want it's the Papach rule. You want someone who can turn up and put in that level of performance week in, week out. rather than, if you play for Motherwell, you crack one into the top corner, and then have a couple of quiet games, everyone's happy. And we're asking, that's a big question. And I've got to be honest, if I was Raskin's dad, who seems to be the person he uses as his mouthpiece when he's not talking directly to the press, I would be taking a step back and going, okay, maybe you have developed as far as you can in Scottish football. He might revisit that. I think Cammy's point's valid. I think if you're looking at jumping off points in your career trajectory, you're thinking after a World Cup, if he plays and he does all right, he stocks high, is that the time to move up to a bigger league or a club in a bigger league? If we go straight into the Champions League, then it suddenly becomes potentially appealing for his development. That'll be Nicola asking. I honestly can't see what I would say is he's got ups and downs, but the curve has been generally upward the last couple of years. So he does have periods where, like you say, that first half, you're not seeing him. In the second half, is that the manager giving him, like instructions to get further up the pitch? Is that simply the fact he's playing with the wind at his back in the second half? These are the things we're not privy to. But I think with a lot of the best players, you see that consistent improvement, even if they have the slight downsides. And I was initially, when he had that purple patch and there was talk of selling him in the close season at the end of that season, I was like, take the money. He's been here 2 years. He's had like 4 or 5 months where he's been all right, getting the money. Now I'm kind of with Cammy. I think that, he continues to develop and he's got the makings of a Rangers captain. However, the reality of the world is now, if you're good enough to be a Rangers captain, you're probably good enough to play in a bigger league. And that's where we might hold on to him for a season if we get the Champions League. But if you're saying 20 million for Nicola Raskin and that goes towards the rebuild on top of the share issue and everything else, that's going to be a difficult decision. And it'll be interesting to see actually what Danny Rule would want in that case.
Cammy, last thing we'll touch on, because we're not already over 40 minutes, is still on the same subject, because we can still include Raskin in this, but due to results in the Champions League this week, it leaves us in pole position. It's a big if we win the league, we are most likely to go into the Champions League direct. I think it's Shakhtar and Olympiacos are the 2 teams that could possibly take that space, but they're out of the 3 of us, we're the ones in the most favourable position if we win the league. Dangling that in front of Raskin, saying to him, you mentioned in a private chat, he's out of contract in 2028. If you dangle the Rangers captaincy, you're getting in the Belgian national team. I know you're getting a chance to play in the Champions League proper. Do a contract extension another couple of years.
Well, I think improved terms, I think, would be part of, extend your contract to 2029. And you're in a position that you can leave summer 2027, for example, but you're going to be in a position where I don't think James Tavernier stays beyond this summer. So you're going to free up one of the top earners. You've got guys like Matondo freeing up 35 grand a week off his wage. So players can be rewarded. I never thought I'd see the day, Billy, where I'd be paying attention to Shakhtar Donetsk against Crystal Palace across the 2 legs in the Conference League, because that,
I think they would need to win the Conference League, wouldn't they?
I think so. It's one of these situations. It's all irrelevant until such time as we win the league, but you have to pay attention to these things. Nico's a funny one. It's like he is 100% a number 6 for Belgium, because he passes the ball to the better players, and that's Tielemans and De Bruyne and Lukaku and Jeremy Doku. My God, it's like he doesn't need to try and be he's effectively the water carrier for Belgium, whereas in Scotland, I don't think he's a 6, but I think he offers more as an 8. It's a strange one, and I think that's his future career is going to be interesting as well with regard to that, because I don't think his passing ability is good enough in certain aspects to go to higher leagues. There's a lot of things at play, but I think it would be great for him to be part of a title-winning Rangers team, extend his contract to 2029, get the Champions League, have a good World Cup with Belgium, but have another season with us. And if that's as the captain next season, then great. But we'll just have to wait and we'll just have to wait and see. I would like to see him stay for another season, give it an opportunity in the Champions League. But I don't think you could say either way. It's going to be this or it's going to be that. But I think he should probably be rewarded with an improved contract, although he'll be on a decent wage.
Billy, along those lines, Cammy's right. He plays with better players, or he is not the best player in the Belgian team, whereas in our team, he's looked up to as meant to be one of the better players. That could all change should we get Champions League money, and he's got, well, the club have a chance to put better players around him.
Yeah, and I mean it's true because, like, you know, we'd all look half decent if you stuck us in that Belgium side. Although as AJW F6539, could you not get a handier handle than that, a catchier handle? But as AJW is saying, like, you know, Belgium doesn't exactly thrive at the World Cup, so I'm not sure, you know, like how much that will do for Raskin. Although you're hoping scouts are watching him, etc. In terms of holding on to Raskin, it's a really interesting insight into the hypocrisy of the football fan. Is like, if we want to keep him, like, we will be utterly, you know, like utterly raging if he goes and upset, and how can he do this? But if we decide, if a bid comes in for 25 million, it'll be bye, see you, Nicola, and what can we do with the money? So I think sometimes we need to be a wee bit realistic that this is people's lives and careers, and it's a two-way street. And, you know, as often as a player will disappoint us by wanting to leave, that there must be situations where the club is basically ushering someone towards the door. Will be interested to see, you know, in terms of a career trajectory, getting into the Champions League next season would be a big motivation for him. It's also, aside from that, though, there is an element of, and I think we saw this with a lot of players who are not Rangers men and don't have the history, like post 55, I think one of the mistakes we made was in not freshening up that squad. You heard it in a lot of the interviews afterwards that people felt they had climbed the mountain in terms of doing 55. It was the objective, winning the league. And for a lot of, let's say, non-Rangers Rangers guys who are not bothered about 3, 4, 5 championships, that was job done. And I think there was a fall off in performance. If we win the league this season, with players like Raskin, I'm not levelling it to him in particular, but with players like Raskin, we're going to have to be aware that they're going to have to come to Rangers and done what they see as being the maximum possible, which is winning the league title. And okay, the Champions League would be a big carrot in terms of, like, you know, a step up in performance. But, you know, if we went into the Champions League next season and it was like the last time we were there, you know, and then we've got Raskin for the second half of the season, I would hope that would be an interesting test of who he is as a character, because then it's down to who you are as an individual. Do you have that inside to want to win a second title? I'll worry about that if we win a first title, but it is something that's in the back of my mind, that just because last time we were all caught in the glow of 55 and you know, guilty, you know, like I was just like in a sea of merch like for about 2 months afterwards, and ordering tops that weren't even made yet and stuff like that. I think with the 49ers, if we win the league, we'll be looking at next season from the second the final whistle goes, and Raskin will be a big question mark about that.
Guys, we'll probably wrap things up round about now. I've got a couple of things I want to cover. If you have your notifications turned on, please look at our scouting video that's going to go out at 2 o'clock today. The scouting boys have put together a really, I don't know, a really in-depth video for you to look at. So please check that out at 2 o'clock. Also, want to mention our sponsor, the Bluebells Bar in Puerto del Carmen. If you're out there, it's the only Rangers bar in Puerto del Carmen. Go in there, tell them the Rangers Journal sent you, and Kenny will look after you. So thank you very much for sponsoring us. Cammy and Bill, I'll just come to you one last time to see if I've missed any kind of Rangers-related news for the last week. Cammy?
I don't think so. It's been, there's not been loads happening, but we've been talking here for 50 minutes and we could probably go in for another 10, 15. You know, there's been a lot of good engagement in the comments as well. So no, nothing I can think of, to be honest.
Well, thanks very much for being on the show, Cammy. Billy, yourself, have I missed anything that you've seen in the news the last week?
Just two very quick things. One, I think, is today. Is it today the anniversary of 10 years since we knocked Celtic out of the cup when we were in a lower division? Which, let's just be clear for any sort of watching Tim's, was the greatest result in Old Firm history, because it'll never happen again. A lower level Old Firm team knocking out the much richer and much favoured other team. And I don't know about you guys, but whenever I want to kind of have a pick me up, sticking on that Barry Mackay screamer, that at the time, it's the closest I think I've ever come to literally jumping out my skin, because it was just, it was one of those where you're looking around to other folk going, did you see that? Did you see it? So that's a nice memory to look back on. Maybe go a wee bit sort of blurry on some of the stuff that followed and came before. The one other thing, I don't know if it's been mentioned in another pod, but the website rangerspubs.com, that's quite a worthwhile thing. I've been having for bears who are overseas and looking to get to games and not sure where there's maybe a local that's showing Rangers games. It seems like a cracking resource. I had a look at it. There's a pub in Copenhagen that I know shows Rangers games, and it's on there. So if you are a Rangers fan overseas, or you've been overseas and there's a pub that shows the Rangers games, stick the details on there, because it's a massive help. And like Cammy's talking about Heart and Hand, every week you've got someone messaging in there going, I'm in Dubai or whatever, where can I see the game? So rangerspubs.com, I think it's a fantastic example of fans taking the initiative and helping other fans.
I did use it myself because I'm going away soon on holiday. Unfortunately, no Rangers bars near me, but I think there is only one game, and I actually fly back during the Hearts game. So I'll hopefully land to some good news with that one. But everyone, thank you very much for the comments today. As Cammy and Billy said, there's been lots of interaction there. So thank you very much for the comments at the side. We do read them all, and I bring on the ones at the screen that are appropriate at the time. So sorry if I've missed something. It might just not have been the right time to bring it on the screen. Again, thank you everyone for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Look out for a scouting video going out at 2 o'clock today. And remember, every night is a Rangers Journal night. See you.
Every night is the Rangers Journal night.